Bruce Plourde, American Studies. Do you know how to find secondary sources?
No.
Would you like me to tell you?
Yes.
When you read a work of literature, you'll gain a certain understanding of it based upon your prior experience with literature, and even your prior knowledge as a human being with a certain amount of life experiences. That prior knowledge will give you a good start in appreciating a work of literature. What will enhance your understanding of a work, and what will help you to speak or write authoritatively about it, are secondary sources. Secondary sources are different than primary sources. An example of a primary source would be a poem, or a novel, or a play, anything that was crafted by a literary artist. A secondary source is a piece of writing that comments upon the primary sources. So secondary sources can be book-length studies, or articles in a major newspaper, or academic web pages from sites that are peer-reviewed, or articles from academic journals. In some ways, the best sources for an academic paper are those book-length studies and the articles that you will find in academic journals, primarily because they offer authoritative information, but also because they offer good models for academic writing. There's a lot of material out there, and most of it is readily available on the internet. Because it is so easy, though, the internet is not always the best route for finding secondary sources. You might find some interesting information about your subject on a web page called Stuff You Should Know, and it might even make sense to you. The problem with such a website is that we never know who is behind the creation of the web page. Is this an expert in the field, or someone who has time to spare? How do we know that the information provided is authoritative and relies on good research? Even a website like Wikipedia is full of errors. We often go to a site like Wikipedia for quick and dirty answers, but we should recognize that the information may not be accurate, so we wouldn't want to use any of that information in a paper, for example. For our purposes, the best place to find secondary sources is in the books on the library shelves. You will find primary works of literature, and in the area near them you should also find secondary sources that offer critical studies of those works. The information in these books has been well researched by scholars, and other scholars have taken the time to examine their work for accuracy. Thank goodness for the internet, though. One of the best sources of solid critical works, or works that comment analytically upon literature, is the internet. While the internet does have a lot of junk, it also offers access to much of the materials that you can find on the shelves in the library. One great place to find scholarly articles is on Google Scholar. Here you can find a list of both primary and secondary sources. If you were looking up information on Stephen Crane, for example, you would go to Google Scholar and type into the search box Stephen Crane, and what you would get are a number of hits about Stephen Crane generally. Rather than look through 1,000 listings, though, you can use qualifiers to narrow the search and give you sources more specific to your quest. The word "and" will reduce the number of hits that you will get, and so can narrow your search. If you write in the search box Stephen Crane and fiction, you will eliminate any references to Crane's poetry, for example. If you write in that search box Stephen Crane and fiction and Maggie, then you'll reduce the hits even further. What you are telling the system to do is to look for sources that are about Stephen Crane and fiction and Maggie, and to ignore anything that does not include all three of those words, or categories. The word "or" works in just the opposite way. If you use the word "or" between words, you are telling the search engine to look for one thing or another thing, which will give you many more hits. For example, if you were to write into the search engine box Stephen Crane or Herman Melville, you would get hits that include primary or secondary works that relate to either author. You can apply these Boolean terms "and" "or" to any search engine, even those that you can find on the Rowan Library website. What you will find here are databases that include any number of articles on a given literary matter. The two best ones to use are the Academic Search Premier, also known as EBSCOhost, and JSTOR. Any articles you find on these databases will be authoritative and peer-reviewed. Academic Search Premier will offer more choices, but those choices are not always readily available at the library. JSTOR has fewer articles, but what articles it does have can be immediately downloaded to your computer. To access these and other databases, go to the Rowan University's library website. You can either type in "library" on the Rowan homepage, or just go to www.lib.rowan.edu library.rowan.edu. On the library's homepage, you should see a brown box that says Databases. If you click on that, you'll find a broad range of different databases that you can use to access articles on almost any subject. After you click on Databases, you can click on the first Browse button and narrow the listings to just literature. In that list of 22 links, you'll find Academic Search Premier and JSTOR. Once you've gotten to your database of choice, you'll be confronted with those search engine boxes. In this screenshot, you'll see the search term boxes in the upper left-hand corner. Plug in your search and see what awaits. You may be confronted with a long list of choices, even after you've refined your search. In that case, start wading into the material by reading a description of the article or maybe the first paragraph or two of that article to see if it's something you might be able to use to support a literary argument. If not, then go to the next one. Eventually, you should find something useful and interesting that fits your criteria. Even if it doesn't, you might find a fairly recent article that will have a Works Cited page at the end. On that list of Works Cited, you'll see the various sources that the author consulted in writing that article, so perusing that list might show you a possible source that you could use in your paper.
And that should get you started on finding secondary sources.
Thank you.